Hello everybody, hope you're having a good one out there. Welcome to episode 2 of the PED MAK Podcast. So we've got a really interesting topic today. We've had a lot of questions from just a variety of different people talking about what is it like being digital nomads, especially now as a family. We've got Asia, our little 1-year-old here. So today we're going to be talking to you about the positives and the negatives, the pros and the cons of being a digital nomad family.
One of the pros that I can think about for myself that I really enjoy is the fact that, of course, being a digital nomad, you get to travel around, you get to experience different cultures, but with that also comes a cuisine. When I'm in a different country, I love to dive deep into their traditional cuisine and see what I can learn. And for me, that is a huge pro.
The second pro that needs to be mentioned, again, kind of refers a little bit back to culture, and that's sort of growing your wisdom, no matter what age you are, by actually experiencing different cultures. So what do I mean more specifically by that? Well, in my opinion, or our opinion, I should say, the more countries that you do travel to at any age, whether you're 1, 10, 20, 50, 60, you're going to get that more diverse range of cultures. You're going to get different kinds of people, different ways of life, different kinds of food, as Corina did mention before. So kind of without realizing it, even if you don't want to, you're going to be, I guess, a lot more tolerable and a lot more wise if you get to go through all of these different experiences. A lot of these different things you're probably not going to enjoy, but you're going to kind of learn to accept and be okay with change. But then some of the things are going to be really surprising. And I think you can probably agree, when your mind is constantly going through that kind of change from these different cultures, it's able to adapt and maybe learn and just be better overall.
Another huge pro for myself is being able to do this with our baby. She will get to experience a whole wide variety of experiences. So she will have, I know I said that a little bit weirdly, but she will have a lot of experiences already by the time she's just little. So that's going to amplify or expand her awareness, her mind, and her social skills. And also, I believe it will make her a little bit wiser as well, right from, because as they're young, they're a sponge. So if we get wiser when we're older already, imagine them. So that is a massive pro for me. All of the benefits that come for our baby.
Another really important point that we kind of touched on a little bit was that ability to adapt to change very easily. So the human generally doesn't like change, but there can definitely be a lot of positive to come out of change. It can be viewed in both lights, in being positive and negative, but more often than not, your body, your mind, your soul is going to be able to adapt in a positive way from change, but only if you open yourself up to it and allow yourself to do it. Now, when you're traveling, or if you want to do a lot of traveling, like us being a digital nomad family, you simply don't have a choice. If you want to settle down in a particular country that's just a little bit different to the way you do things back at home, you have to change. You've got no choice. And it's not a case of you needing to sit down and go, well, I have to accept and be happy about every single part of change. No, not at all. But it's about kind of realizing that you're not at home where you grew up. You are in a different country, and where there may have been some negatives back from where you came, there's going to be some different kinds of positives too. So just being able to, adapt and change over time is definitely going to be a lot better for your mind as well.
There has been studies that actually they are proving that having this sort of mental flexibility is actually great at creating new neurological pathways. So that means that you're going to be using more space in your brain just by accumulating these experiences and having to force yourself to embrace this change. I really enjoy learning about the different kinds of politics in different countries. I think that is very interesting. I'm not like into politics as much, not really. But when I go to a different country and I start hearing the locals talk about the politics of the country and just realizing how different it is to what I'm used to or to where I come from, it's just very interesting. Like, for example, at the moment we're currently in Thailand, and the politics here is quite different and very interesting to just sit down with a local and actually listen to them speak about the politics of the country.
The next point that has to be covered is not having a boss. So again, there is a negative side to this as well, which we might go over in a bit. But as for the positive side, look, you don't need to be told by someone else what to do. If you don't want to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning, you don't have to. It's probably best if you do have your own business that you do have some kind of routine and structure that you do stick to. But the bottom line is you make your own rules. If you're not going to be putting in the effort, then you're going to receive that back from the universe, whether your business is going to be successful or not. If you're putting in a lot of effort and you're in the right space and the right area, then your business should benefit from that as well. So, I probably haven't really had a boss for quite a few years now across a few different occupations. And one thing I do want to say as well, though, it's not about having a boss means that you're sort of lesser of a person or anything like that. I think that as you grow through life with your career and everything like that, there's definitely a time and a place to have a boss, and it doesn't necessarily matter what age you are or anything like that. But for me personally, if I'm someone that's going to have a boss at a company, for example, I want to make sure that I'm learning something. Maybe I'm getting paid really well, so I can invest that money in a different type of training or an investment or something like that. So there has to be a reason. But for example, there are going to be some jobs where if I'm not really learning and I'm getting low pay and I'm getting told what to do by a boss and it's not really good for my mental health, then that's just not really good for me. So not having a boss is definitely a really good perk of being a digital nomad.
Another pro that I'm going to mention is the fact that it actually forces you to be more organized, and because you have to wake up with a schedule. For example, we love traveling so much that it's so easy to wake up and just go out and eat food and just go around and see all the sights and do all the things. But that can also stop us from sitting down and doing our work. So the pro here is that it actually enables us to be more organized. It forces us to be more organized with our schedules. So we have to think about how can we actually do the fun stuff and the work stuff, which for us is actually also fun stuff. But how can we do everything? How can we fit it all in the day without stressing out? And so that's a pro, because it forces us to be more organized, and then it just becomes second nature after a while.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I have to agree with Corina 100%. It kind of forces you to be organized. If you want to make this work long term and you're traveling around, it's very easy to just fall out of routine. It's very hard to maintain a routine, and it's hard every day. It doesn't get any easier. But I think you just have to kind of, stick at it, and eventually if you do it for long enough, you will find ways to make it a bit easier for yourself. But especially with a baby as well, just to add on to that last point, she obviously is the priority for us. We've always put her ahead of ourselves in terms of when she needs to nap, when she needs to wake up, feed, change the diaper, play with her, read her a book, tell her a story, take her outside, You'll know if you've got kids listening that, there's so many elements to having a kid just even at your home. So when you're traveling around with them, it just obviously adds a huge dynamic shift to that. And it is very challenging, but at the same time, I think in the medium to long term, we should see those rewards. Now, another really important positive is the fact that we don't actually need to commute to and from work. Now, we both came from the UK, London to be specific. As most of you may know if you've seen our previous podcasts and talks. Now, typically in London, if you're going to commute to work on public transport, you're looking at minimum 1 hour there and then 1 hour back, okay? So that's 2 hours out of your day. And of course you can do things like read a book, reply to emails, but I'm not sure. For me personally, the idea of having to commute to work, whether it's in a car, bus, train, whatever, every single day, I don't know, from a cost point of view and a time point of view, I don't really like that. I never really have. I always made it a mission for myself when I worked as a physical personal trainer in London that for a good part of time, for 4 or 5 years, my commute to work was probably like a 3-4 minute walk down the street. So it was a very short amount of time. It was one of my goals to always say to myself, whenever I was going to move house to a different house, it had to be closer to my place of work. There's absolutely no way I wanted to commute any further because it just takes too much time. It's too costly. I don't want it, I want to maybe sleep in more or do something at home before and after work. I don't want to spend that time.
I guess this one is a very obvious one, but we do really get to meet a lot of interesting people. People have done amazing stuff in their life. It's just incredible. You just hear some incredible stories that you think, wow, it sounds like I'm actually listening to a movie right now. And so obviously you get that in your own country as well, but there's something about meeting these sort of people when you're just out and about in different countries that it just adds another layer to the story, because some of the stuff can be really fascinating and stuff that you're not really used to hearing.
This particular gentleman, as Corina said, Vietnamese guy at the cafe, and we kind of got a really interesting, almost like, not in a bad way, but it was kind of like a bit of a gangster vibe from him. Very friendly, he had his slick back hair, covered in kind of black and white tattoos on the arms. Personally, my taste, I thought they were awesome. And then I kind of knew that we were going to strike up some kind of conversation. I can't remember what I asked him, but I was interested in his tattoos. And I think he said he was kind of interested in my tattoo sleeve as well. And as Corina mentioned, he was actually in the Marine Corps, and some of the stories he was telling us were quite profound. You know, I'm not going to name his name, but he actually said he had been shot in the leg in duty. He showed us the bullet hole in his leg that was healed up, and it was quite graphic and intense, and obviously telling us these really traumatic stories that he'd been through and how he'd kind of lost even some friends serving on the front line. I can't imagine how hard that must have been for him to deal with. He was sort of explaining, you know, why he was working at the cafe and talking about how he had all of his friends were actually of, I think, Black American background, which was really interesting because he was kind of like the sort of almost like the token Asian Vietnamese guy within maybe his friendship group. So yeah, just like a really interesting character overall, and just one example of the people you can meet when you kind of do venture outside of your circle of your hometown or home country. Now, this particular gentleman was really young as well. I think he must have been 24, 25 years old, right?
He said 24.
He said 24, yeah. So really young, lovely guy.
He's already lived so much.
Yeah.
At the age of 24, it was mind-blowing.
That's right, yeah. Now, of course, we did talk about the positives of being your own boss, but there is another side to the coin here. So some of the negatives straight off the bat are simply the fact that you have to be extremely disciplined, and in a lot of cases you do kind of need that motivation to maintain that discipline. So this is an area that I'm often struggling in, you know, and Joe Rogan, a really popular podcaster and part owner of the UFC, once said really simply on one of his podcasts that, you know, F motivation, what you need is actually discipline. And it was quite a simple quote, but I actually go back to this quote quite often when I'm feeling a lack of motivation for what I'm doing. A perfect example is when I'm actually editing the videos that we put out for you guys. I don't particularly enjoy video editing, if I'm being brutally honest with you, but I know that it is an important part of the process to getting that video from that planning stage out to the publishing on YouTube. I really like filming and taking content, but editing, it's just kind of draining. I don't like sitting down on the computer for hours. I get sore shoulders, I get a sore back, and often I don't have the motivation to actually do that. But what you really need is that discipline. Now, to round that back to my original point, if you've actually got someone just telling you what to do, barking orders at you, again, not saying that even in a negative way, but it can be a lot easier. You've got a boss, they tell you, what do you need to do for the day? Here's the list. You've got 5 things to do, just go out and get them done. So what does it do? It mitigates the need for you as a person to actually think about things like structure, planning, timing, all that kind of thing. But if you're your own boss, you have to kind of delegate these important tasks towards yourself. You need to prioritize, think about what's important, actually get up and, you know, start working at 8 or 9, whereas often, some days I might start working at 7. Some days I might not do anything until 1 p.m. in the afternoon because things can just be a little bit all over the place. So that can be one of the negatives about not having a boss if you're not able to really have that discipline to remain structured and remain efficient in your workday.
Some of you might know already that I speak 5 languages. Used to be fluent in all 5, now I'm a bit rusty in some of them because I spent a long time in UK just speaking English. I am very much used to going to a country and just knowing how to speak to the locals when I'm in Europe. A big con for me is coming to a country like in Southeast Asia, like we've got Thailand, we've got Vietnam, there's other countries, they all speak different languages, and the language barrier for me can be a con because I try really hard, but I know that it takes time to sit down and learn a language, so I default to English, and that makes me feel, it doesn't make me feel too good to speak to people in English, because if I'm in their country, I like to be able to communicate to them in their own language and make things easier for them because I'm the foreigner in their country. For me, a con is the language barrier.
Yeah, look, I must agree with Corina as well. You know, it's definitely one of those things where it does make things hard. You know, you go to a country and there can just be that block there, and it is very, very hard. And even here in Thailand, you know, I'm not yet fluent in the Thai language, but just getting by with a bit of basic conversations and things like that, is really, really helpful for me, but I can't imagine how hard it must be for Corina. But that being said, a little bit off topic here, but Corina's Thai is actually getting a lot better. She's getting to know and practicing the basics of like ordering food and ordering a coffee and things like that. So yeah, I personally do think though, if you are going to be in any country, you should at least learn hello and thank you. At least 2 things. I think they're easy to do, it's just common courtesy. A little bit off topic there, but I think it's important. And now just to touch on the change element again, again, 2 sides to this one, positive and negative, but the negative here is that any kind of change is going to be really stressful. And if you're not the kind of person that is able to just take a moment and accept, embrace, and work on how to get around that, then being a digital nomad, let alone with a family, is not going to be for you. You have to constantly be ready to take change head on and just go straight through it and think of the most positive way that you can adapt to that change and really embrace it. So I would say, yeah, if you're not willing to embrace change on literally a daily basis from the moment you get up to the moment you go to sleep in a different country, then it's probably not the lifestyle for you.
A con for me is the different time zones. Different countries, different time zones. Some countries are even minus 14 hours from here. So for me, that's fine. I can deal with jet lag, perfectly fine, no problem whatsoever. But when it comes to having a baby, especially under the age of 1 or even around up to the age of 8 even, it makes me feel bad when I have to subject them to that sort of change. Say, for example, we're in Thailand now, and then we decide to just go to Spain because that's where my sisters live. I have 3 sisters, all of them living in Spain, and if we want to go there, then we have to subject Asia, our baby, to that time difference. Which what that does for her is that it kind of messes up her circadian rhythm a little bit. So if she's used to going to bed at 7 p.m, waking up at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m, now she has to adjust. And so doing that too much, we try to avoid doing that too much, basically. Yeah, so we were going to go to Europe just recently, and then we thought, let's just give it a little while because, Asia has just come from UK, and then she was in Australia, even though Australia is just 3 hours, so it's not a big deal. But, when you have these long hours in between, it's just, you kind of feel a little bit bad about doing that with a young child. You do it once or twice, but too often you kind of like, I actually as a mother, I feel a little bit like, oh, I hope this is not really affecting her too much. So that's a con for me.
The next negative is just visa stuff in general. So, for example, you get to a country, you need to obviously find out, okay, am I first of all allowed into the country based on my nationality? And if I am, then how long can I stay? What are the rules? Because you don't want to go to a country and then overstay and then get in trouble with that particular country. So, that can be a bit of a weird one. So, for example, us here now, we're going through the process of trying to get a family certificate to prolong our visa for 1 year. Now, it's not the hardest thing in the world, but it does take time, money, energy, and you do need to be organised and plan your time within that country around it. And every country, of course, is going to have different regulations. So it's just something that, again, you need to be prepared for. And I think if you're like a really disorganised person, then it's probably not going to be suitable for you when travelling around.
I'm going to mention a con that I actually kind of mentioned within the pros, is that it does require a lot of discipline and a lot of motivation, a lot of willpower to be organised. And so that can also be a con because you just don't always want to be disciplined and motivated. Sometimes you just want to lay back and watch Netflix, or you just want to, like in our kind of case, you just want to be out there exploring. And so it can be a con and a pro at the same time. It really depends on where you're at with your mindset and with your energy levels.
Yeah, I think just to touch on that one again, Corina's point there, the potential negative is that you kind of always switched on. And I think, especially again, directing it at the parents out there that are watching, or even if you're someone that has to look after someone else, doesn't necessarily have to be a kid, just any other person or significant other that you're responsible for. It is hard work, it's around the clock, even if you're just at home. But, again, traveling, doing it on the go, constantly changing your home and everything like that, adapting to a new place, even just little things, new kitchen, new bathroom, new workspace, new living space, new area, you might just want to go out for a bit of a walk, but you don't know the best place to go for a walk, or even if it's suitable, right, when doing things like Airbnbs and stuff like that. So it just adds, again, that whole other dynamic that you need to be prepared to embrace, otherwise you're just not going to appreciate it.
So let's talk about flights. We have always traveled very light. I remember going to Malaysia with just my handbag and just stuffing some clothes in there. Like 2 changes of clothes and just hand washing. Like we travel light, like not even a backpack, but you know, we travel with a backpack basically. And so now, as you know, as we've got a family, we have to travel with a check-in because she's got her baby chair, like her Thai chair that we bring with us. She's got her bath, her inflatable bathtub. She's got her toys. She's got like all the baby stuff is just very bulky, and so we have to put it in a check-in luggage and suitcase. So that for us has just been a bit of a because we have to carry this big suitcase everywhere we go, and we change Airbnb. Like if we're going to stay for 2 weeks, say in a country, we're probably going to try out 2 different Airbnbs, maybe even 3. So yeah, having to pack everything into that suitcase and just carrying it from one Airbnb to another has just been a bit. You know, it's just a bit like, you know, you're just too lazy to do stuff. Like, it's just an extra step, you know, that we're not used to doing. So that has been one of the cons for us. And then another one is obviously like being on these long 10-hour, 11, 12-hour flights with a hyperactive kid. By hyperactive, I don't mean like hyperactive in the actual meaning of the word. I just mean like babies are very active. And so having a baby on a very long distance flight, just jumping on you, just wanting constant attention and just wanting for you to stand up, to want to walk around the aisle and you holding, you know, all of that, it just requires you to have a lot of energy. And so we used to love long distance flights so that we could get to watch some movies, just chill. We actually love doing long distance flights. But now that we have our baby, it's just a little bit more challenging because you can't actually like lay back and watch movies. One of us can, and then the other one is just trying to like or constantly have this high energy for the baby if she's not sleeping. Luckily for us, this has only really happened once because she usually sleeps on the flights, but that is something that we always have in the back of our mind. Okay, it's a 10-hour flight. Let's just make sure that we're prepared energy-wise, that we've slept the night before so that we can entertain her. You just have to make sure you've got the energy there available to entertain your young child on the flight. And then when she can start doing things like colouring and stuff, I think it might be a bit different. But at the moment, there's not really anything that she can do aside from jumping and singing and wanting to walk up and down the aisle and all of that. So that might be a bit of a con, actually.
Alrighty folks, if you enjoyed today's video, please do just take a moment to like today's video and let us know in the comments what you think about traveling as a digital nomad. Are you a digital nomad yourself, or are you maybe thinking about becoming one? We would love to hear from the community. If you haven't noticed already, we always get back to every single comment that you guys leave in the comment section. So we absolutely encourage and love those comments coming through. And if you want to see us again, don't forget to subscribe as well. And most importantly of all as well, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our videos. So yeah guys, let us know what you feel about these podcasts. We're going to try and do them every single week. Anything you want to add before we say goodbye?
Just very grateful that you all are here, that you've watched to the end. Yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week in another episode.
Alright, catch you next week guys.
Sawadee ka.
Sawadee ka. Thank you.